Hey everybody, this is Mike Young with aPlantBasedDiet.org, and I am here with Geoff Palmer for an interview I've been looking forward to about a subject I don't know much about. Geoff is the founder of Clean Machine. I know you're in Florida today, so welcome, Geoff.
Thank you. We're getting a little bit of liquid sunshine here right now, so I hope it doesn't interfere with the call.
Yes, I want to actually move over to speaker view. There we go. Okay, so anyway, you and I have met more recently, and I know that you are really this topic here about omegas that we're going to discuss today is really a dive into the science. Is something that I am not typically going into. I feel like, as I mentioned before this call started, before this recording started, that a lot of times it's the same stuff, just bounce back and forth. And this is going to be new. I'm going to learn something. I think anybody watching this video is going to learn something, and I've already decided that I need to send this video to a number of people that I've been involved with that are kind of on the leading edge of what's going on, that need to hear some of this information that you're going to convey about Omega. So can you give us a little overview? I know it's a new book that you have. Give us
Yes.
a little overview. Why is this important, and what do we need to know?
Well, I became vegan almost 40 years ago, and back in 1985 when I did this out of compassion for the animals. I had an amazing breakthrough that released me from my suffering of suicidal depression, and I said, I know what it feels like to suffer emotionally, physically, mentally. I don't ever want to contribute to anything else's suffering. And as I got into vegan and I heard about the plight of the animals, obviously I didn't want to contribute to it. But when I really dove into it, I said, well, the greatest amount of suffering is coming from fish, and people aren't even talking about fish. I mean, if you look at all the animals that are killed for food, 90 billion of them are land animals, chickens, fish, cows. I mean, chickens, cows, and sheep and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But 2 to 3 trillion fish are killed every year for human foods. And then I looked at the suffering of the animal. And look, when we breathe in mostly air, which is a lot of oxygen, some carbon dioxide, and a little bit of water vapor. But if you put a wet blanket over somebody's mouth, they'll breathe in more water, and it causes excruciating burning sensation, and it makes us panic like we're suffocating. Mm-hmm. It's called waterboarding. It's a form of aggressive, gruesome torture that we use on humans. Mm-hmm. Well, fish, conversely, they breathe in mostly water with some dissolved oxygen in it. So they need a little oxygen and a lot of water. We need a lot of oxygen and a little water. So it's just the opposite. When you pull them out of the water, now they're getting flooded with oxygen, and it inflames their gills. That's why you see them flaring their gills, because they are basically being waterboarded, and then they're left out of the water until they die, which means they're basically waterboarded to death. It's a horrific experience, and 2 to 3 trillion times every year. So I said,
I think to your point, I think that people don't recognize it because the oceans, the water surfaces are vast, and there's hardly anyone on them compared to the land, right? So a lot happens out there that we just don't see.
And the harvesting now has gone up to these amazing drift nets that can literally take millions of fish out of every pull out of the ocean. Millions on one boat, one net. Now multiply that by boats and nets all around the world, and this is how you get to that trillions number.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard we've gotten so good at this gathering and harvesting of fish that too good, right? So now we're destroying this balance that's supposed to happen out there and removing all the life so that that balance is being disturbed in a way that may not be able to be recovered from.
Absolutely. And the worst part about it is we use the oceans as a dumping ground for waste, for chemical waste, for pharmaceutical waste, for radioactive waste, for oil spills, plastic waste.
Also, I tell people that, even if we're not intentionally dumping, anything that is spilled anywhere, right, eventually makes its way down to the oceans.
Yeah.
So even if it was unintentional, I'd say probably most spills, most waste like that is unintentional.
It's like bobbing for an apple out of a toilet bowl. And most people wouldn't do that, but that's exactly what we're doing when we're
Yeah.
eating fish.
Yeah, that's bad. Okay. All right. So the fish, everybody knows, like I talked about omegas here in the beginning of the video. You hear about omegas, you think about fish oil. At least I have. I remember back in the 90s, that was it. I don't know, it was a big thing about health in the 90s. I remember it was fish oil, fish oil. And so what can you tell us about that? What can we learn? What do we know that what have we heard that's wrong? What have we heard that's right? What can we learn?
Yeah, so just like with the very first question most vegans get is, where do you get your protein, right? Well, it's not protein that's important. It's actually the amino acids, and all essential amino acids are made by plants. Animals don't even make them. Most people actually know this by now. The vast majority. There's still people who don't understand that, but at least most vegans know that. But there's still this idea that somehow fish are the supply of omegas. Fish do not make omega-3s, period. No animal does. There are two essential omega. You know, when I'm lecturing all over the country, I ask people, what are the two essential omega-3s? And 99.9% of the people get it wrong. They always say EPA and DHA. EPA and DHA are not essential. Our body makes its own EPA and DHA from the only essential omega-3, ALA. So ALA is the only one that humans, like all animals, can't make, right?
Yeah,
Actually, carnivores don't even start with ALA. They start much further down the chain. They don't even convert ALA. So only herbivores and some omnivores actually convert ALA to EPA and DHA.
okay. So to clarify, ALA is sourced from plants
Only.
and you cannot source it from any animal, including fish.
Now, some animals will actually store a little bit of ALA in their tissues, so you could get a minor amount of ALA, but the animal doesn't make the ALA. They still have to eat it, either from plants or from another animal.
They're a middle person at best. We all know
Exactly.
it's
Just
always
like the amino acids. So
correct.
both essential amino acids and essential fatty acids, like omega-3 and omega-6, are essential. They're called essential because it's essential for all animals, including humans, to get them from our diet, to get them from outside of our body. That's why they're called essential, because
Okay.
we have to get them from our diet. So that's the basics.
All right. So you have a new book, or is it out, or I don't even know.
No, still working on it, still in the writing phase.
Right. Do you have a title?
Hopefully be out by the end of the year.
Do you have a title for the book yet?
Not yet. I'm trying to really think of a good one because I keep coming up with great new studies and I'm like, oh, but that's all right. We'll get there.
Okay. Well, eventually just look up Geoff, and it's spelled with a G, right? Geoff Palmer.
Yes.
And Clean Machine, you'll find if you're watching this video at the end of the year, because we're recording this here in June still of 2024, and hopefully it'll be out by the end of the year, because this is a lot of new information. I know that you gave me a few things to review before this, and I have a few questions, just some general things actually I wanted to ask you about this, because let's say the biggest question, I guess, the one that everybody asks who is somewhat familiar with omegas, is the ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s.
Yes.
Like, let's say, how do you get the correct ratio? Is there a correct ratio by eating plants?
So the correct ratio is done by the human body. So you don't even have to worry about it as long as you put the two precursors in it. Then the body will convert down to the different forms like EPA and DHA, or in omega-6, it's converted down to GLA, DGLA, and arachidonic acid. So our body has these enzymes that the genes can turn on and off. Think of it as, have you ever seen those cups where one cup, you pour water into one cup and then it pours into the next cup and then down into the next cup? Well, basically our body controls all those different cups and how that flows. So it regulates or controls all the conversion rates. So the body does that. Now, when you take a preformed, that means it's formed outside of the body instead of letting the body make its own and introduce it, you're jumping down. So you're filling up water in a cup way below it without letting the body control or regulate how much of each one of those omega forms that the body needs.
I see.
This is why When you consume an animal product, it has preformed because it's already made in that animal. That animal already adjusted it for it.
Okay.
But when you consume it as like fish oil supplement, you're taking EPA and DHA already formed and just dropping it into the bloodstream. And the body is like, whoa, I didn't make that. I didn't put that there. What's that doing here?
All right, let me give a little catch up for folks who are not familiar with what you just said about, because I know you've been talking for a few minutes now about it. There are three things that folks need to know, I'd say. You tell me if this is correct, please, about the omegas. There's ALA, EPA, and DHA. Those are the three things. Is this correct? That people need
There's
to know?
actually 6 forms. There's ALA, then SDA, then
Okay.
ETA, then EPA,
Oh,
then that converts to DPA, and then finally DHA.
okay.
And each one of those forms is important. That's why our body makes each one of those forms.
Okay,
Each
so
one has a specific purpose. But the largest amounts found in fish oil are EPA and DHA, so we assumed those must be the most important, and
I
they
see.
are
I
not.
see. Okay, so those in fish oil, EPA and DHA, those are down near the bottom, and
Correct.
ALA and the other ones are higher than that. And like you said, I just want to kind of reiterate that you mentioned that you really need to start up there, and then the body will convert on its own to the different forms as needed. Is that correct?
That's exactly it. So it's called a unidirectional conversion. Means it only converts in one direction. It goes from ALA to SDA, ETA, then EPA, DPA, and DHA. So there's 6 forms actually. Most people only know of 2. And that's because the fish oil industry only wants you to care about those 2 because that's what's in their fish
That's what
oil.
they have to sell you. Yeah. Okay. So,
Exactly.
all right. So why are there so many steps? That these are conversion steps, each one on the way down, right? Why is that?
Yes, because specific forms like ALA, SDA, and EPA, 3 of the top 3 forms, those are really important for cardiovascular health. So all of the studies show that if you can consume ALA or EPA and SDA, they all have very positive effects on cardiovascular health.
Okay. Okay.
But our body doesn't want DHA in the bloodstream. So it's at the very bottom. So it can stop any further conversion down to DHA. So the studies have shown that when you introduce DHA into the bloodstream, it wipes out all the beneficial effects of ALA, SDA, and EPA.
Oh, okay.
Not only that, it makes you more likely to get a heart attack, a stroke, AFib, many of these disease
Wow.
states by adding DHA into the bloodstream. So the body has a very cool mechanism to keep DHA out of the bloodstream.
Okay. You mentioned like AFib. I've heard of a lot of people with this. Is it your understanding that something like that is something that's brought on by some nutritional issue that you have?
It's undebatable. There's 12 different studies now, 2 different meta-analyses that looked at this. And consistently across the board, 10 to 49% increase in AFib, the higher the DHA you consume. And what I'm really concerned with is that because the fish oil fear mongering is so successful,
It is.
people are worried they're not getting enough DHA for the brain.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so they're starting to take algae oil, which has preformed DHA in it, and introducing into the bloodstream. So when you increase the risk of AFib 49% by putting this preformed DHA into the bloodstream,
49%. Oh my God.
49%, up to 49%, they've shown that once you have AFib, you're at a 63% increased risk for having an early heart attack.
Right. Of course. Yeah. Yeah. Any of
So
these you don't want to have a cardiovascular issue if you can avoid it. That's for sure. It's just a ticking time bomb. It feels like, you know.
exactly. So DHA, if you put it into the bloodstream, increases LDL cholesterol. I've had about half a dozen people contact me after they've seen my video and said, look, I've been vegan for 6 or 10 or 12 years and my LDL won't come down and I can't figure it out. They want to put me on statin drugs. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Just, are you taking algae oil? And they're like, yeah. I said,
Oh,
stop taking it.
okay.
As soon as they stop taking
So
it,
wait,
10 to 20 points, the LDL
'cause
drops.
that's another thing. I have heard of people that say they have a high cholesterol level and they say, oh, it's just a number. It may be genetic, but you're saying we need to look for this specifically. This could be an issue.
It is known. This is not a guess or may.
Okay.
This is a known factor.
Okay.
Preformed DHA from fish or algae does increase LDL, the bad cholesterol, in our bloodstream.
Wow.
So they said, all right, well, wait a minute. We've seen DHA actually improve cardiovascular in some patients. And I'm like, yeah, compared to what? Compared to heavy meat eaters, which are getting a lot of oxidized cholesterol. When they compared it to vegans, no, they were much worse than vegans. Vegan men had 30% more better improved cardiovascular system. It's called arterial stiffness. It's how stiff the arteries are. If they're full of plaque around the walls, they'll be really stiff and won't be flexible, and that leads to hypertension, high blood pressure. So vegan men don't have that. Now, part of that is the prevention of antioxidants and polyphenols in the bloodstream, but the other part is they're not introducing, by and large, LDL cholesterol into the bloodstream because they're not consuming preformed DHA. So they actually studied that and said, okay, let's take a group of vegans that are consuming 0 DHA, and sure enough, 30% better than those taking fish oil.
Perfect. Okay, well, this is great information. Now, why would it be that a person out there on the street believes that the ALA doesn't convert sufficiently to DHA?
That's a great question.
That's why they're taking these supplements way down at the bottom, right? Because they don't believe it doesn't convert. Though, why would they believe that?
Okay. All right. So this comes from measurements in the blood. The standard blood test, omega-3 index, right? That's the standard. If you go to a doctor, they'll tell you, oh, let's measure your blood for omega-3s. Okay. ALA does not convert to DHA in the blood. And that's to keep DHA out of the bloodstream so that you don't raise LDL cholesterol. So the body is doing the right thing by not converting ALA there. So a brand new study, Dr. Metherell and Dr. Basnet and some others out of the University of Toronto actually measured where that ALA is going. 47 times more ALA is converted in the liver and in the tissues where it can do so safely out of the bloodstream. This is the proper pathway. Yes. Now, what this shows us was not only that DHA, yes, if you take DHA from fish oil and dump it into your body, it's going to end up in your bloodstream. So, of course, it's going to show higher levels of blood DHA. But that is triglyceride DHA, and it just goes into the red blood cells. It does not go to the brain. ALA gets converted in the liver to a form called glyphosphatidyl-choline, or LPC DHA. This is like bound to a form of fat that carries it across the blood-brain barrier. This is the proper pathway. ALA getting shuttled, do not convert it to DHA in the liver where it can cause heart attacks and strokes and AFib, but convert it safely in the liver to LPC DHA so it can be shuttled directly to the brain. This is the proper pathway, and that's why 47 times more ALA is converted to DHA out of the bloodstream and in the tissues only.
All right, so the goal is to get this to the brain.
Yes.
But you want to do it using the right method.
Yes.
That's not going to damage your health.
Correct. Okay. Exactly. So the body does this all by itself. It's its natural pathway. If you give it plant, ALA, if you introduce animal preformed DHA, it screws up the whole system and puts you at a much higher risk for cardiovascular disease, for what they call MACE, major adverse cardiovascular events, heart attacks, coronary heart disease, high blood pressure, stroke. All of those are correlated with consuming animal-based EPA DHA.
All right, this makes sense because I do believe, the body always wants to maintain a balanced state of health. And I do believe that most forms of disease are non-communicable, like some of the things you're describing, are just the body's attempt to get your attention because something isn't being done right. And this explanation you're giving makes perfect sense to me now. And we have to relearn because, like you said, somebody did a great job of marketing. For me, back in the 90s, I don't know, I felt like that's when it was really laid in. Like just like in the 80s, it was, or 80s and 90s with Got Milk and all this other stuff. All these things where people just, they believe that a certain thing is the way it is because of good marketing, not because of actual truth.
So speaking of truth to power, I went and spoke to the nutraceutical industry and said, and they're of course backed heavily by the fish oil industry. So I did an interview with them and laid out this whole thing.
Oh my gosh.
So GOED, which stands for the Global Organization of EPA and DHA. This is the $22 billion fish oil industry's education piece, right? They responded saying, yep, he's pretty much right. We need to change. And I'm like, what? But you know what they did? You know what they did? They went and just published a paper saying everybody should get their blood tested right away for omega-3s because they know the blood tests are inaccurate. For vegans, they're grotesquely inaccurate. And it will scare vegans into saying, oh, I'm not getting enough DHA, because that's not where the DHA is supposed to show up.
Right, I got you, yes.
It's not in the blood. So they intentionally know now that DHA should not be in the blood, and they're still telling people to go get your blood test because it sells more fish oil. They're lying to the American people.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is how it is, right? When you get an entrenched large corporation, and of course, the U.S. is, the government seems to be run by lobbyists who are paid for by the corporations. They just do not want to do anything to harm their bottom line. And I'm glad there's people like yourself who are explaining all this, because I'm learning something right here. I hope everybody else watching this video is, and it's beneficial because, like I said, I've heard from so many people, especially about AFib, right? I was saying that so many people think that that is something that's beyond their control. And from what you're saying here, there's a serious issue of basic general knowledge that's off, and that alone could be causing most of the problems.
We've been dead wrong about omega-3 nutrition, that EPA and DHA are important, or that we can't get them from plants. And just it's opposite. Look, I have not taken preformed DHA from fish, obviously, or algae for over 40 years. If it were true that my body didn't convert to DHA, my brain would be dead right now. Seriously, it would shut down completely and not be effective. Do I sound like I have a dead brain right now?
No. And I think it's common knowledge too. If anybody just goes and does a general search on the internet, that, like I said, I thought there was 3 levels. I thought there was ALA, EPA, and DHA. I didn't have them all, but the general process is you start with ALA, like you said, and that's where you want to start because that's where all the benefits are, right? If you start lower, you reduce benefits, and then you not only reduce benefits, it seems like if you're starting with preform at the bottom, you're potentially purposely harming yourself.
Correct. You're not only, because DHA is at the bottom, DHA doesn't back convert to any other forms. If you start with ALA, you get all 6 forms, and you get your body to produce it in the proper ratios. How much ALA it needs today for your gender, for your age, for your ethnicity, for your exercise fitness level. All of those ratios need to be adjusted in real time. And our body can do that if it starts with the first one instead of the last one.
That makes sense, because like the only way you would know any otherwise, if you could even do it reliably and if it made sense, which it doesn't based on your explanation, is to constantly be getting an accurate blood test. Okay. And even doing the dosage yourself, but even that's not going to be as accurate as your body, who is constantly sensing this, even when you're asleep.
So a really amazing study is ALA sufficient to supply all the DHA to the brain? So they looked at, okay, how much is actually used by the brain per day? So it's about 2.5 to 3.5 milligrams of DHA is used per day. So they started looking at the fat and other tissues, and they said, well, how much is actually stored? 50,000 milligrams of DHA is stored in our body. So you wouldn't run out of DHA, even if you took no DHA and even no ALA, you wouldn't run out of DHA for up to 20 years.
Nice. Okay, that's good. That's good to know, because
so this whole fear thing that you have to take fish oil in these large doses is all just sales bull.
Okay, and I admit here that I used to take well, before I was vegan, I was only turned vegan in 2014 when we started the nonprofit here, which is a vegan organization, 100%. So I stopped all animal products, stopped that. But before that, I was taking it, and I thought I had to, but this, it was harder to get information in the early days of the internet, and a lot of stuff we didn't know. We learn over time. I think it seems very clear, the way you're explaining it to me. It seems to follow in line with a lot of things about the health of the human body and about the role of plants, in that. And actually, I have another question that relates to plants and ALA. Now, if you're saying you're going to get your ALA, and that's the best place to start with your omegas to make sure that they are right, is just give your body ALA, right? I mean, that's the quick and dirty, right? Just give your body ALA, it'll figure it out on its own, right?
The body does the rest of the work for you in perfect harmony and balance.
Okay. So you're going to eat plants, whole plants if you can, because that's nature's form. Do all plants have similar levels, or if you don't eat certain types of plants, is that a concern?
That's a great question. And I'll back it up a little bit, because there is one concern out of genetics.
All right.
So there is a small portion, anywhere between 5 to 10% of the population has what a genetic variation, which is called APOE4. Now, you can get an expensive genetic test to find out if you have that, but what it does. So the very first enzyme that converts ALA to the next step, it also converts omega-6 from LA, which is the predominant omega-6, the only essential one. The same enzyme is used for both omega-6 and omega-3 to convert it down into omega-3 ALA to SDA, and omega-6 LA to GLA. Okay, so that first enzyme is called delta-6 desaturase, or D6D. All right, some people have a gene that doesn't produce copies of that enzyme very well. Okay, so they produce less. It's not that they don't produce any. So if they have that, one way is just to eat a lot more ALA. And they'll have to be a little bit more careful for that. They'll have to eat more omega-3 and omega-6. Most people are getting enough omega-6. That's not the issue. It's usually omega-3s.
Right.
Okay, so that can be a problem for about up to 10% of the population. All right, instead of getting an expensive omega genetic test to find out if you do have that gene variation, what you could do is just focus on plants that provide the next step, SDA. So I went out and searched for a plant that had the highest amount of SDA of any plant, and I found it. Fortunately, actually, somebody else found it. Andrew Hebard spent 30 years of research and development on ahi flower. Ahi flower is the richest source of SDA of any plant on the planet. All right. So I'm like, okay, great. Instead of just producing a product for people to use, like an ALA supplement, this is even better because it provides SDA. This is what it makes it a universal plant-based omega-3. It's land-based, it's not algae-based. Remember, algae has preformed DHA just like animals do. Right. So, people were scared into thinking, oh, we've got to find something that mimics what the animals do. No, the animals had it wrong. We shouldn't be eating animals. Right. We're copying the bad copy.
So those are the preformed types are either supplements of algae or fish oil, right? This to let people know who are maybe not sure about that, right?
Correct. So algae has preformed, means formed outside of our body. Mm-hmm. So it's formed outside instead of taking ALA and letting our body endogenously form its own EPA and DHA. So there is zero requirement for any dietary EPA or DHA. It's not required by the human bodies. Unless you have that genetic factor, then you have to either focus on eating or consuming a lot more ALA to make up for that poor progression, or utilize something like ahi flower. Now, SDA is not found in a lot of different plant sources, like flax and chia are the two most popular omega-3 sources. They don't have any SDA in it at all.
Only ALA in those.
Only ALA, correct. Right. So I wanted to find something that would be good for everyone, regardless of your genetic makeup. And this one bypasses that, so you don't have to focus on consuming such high levels of omega-3s. And remember, if you're trying to get them in whole foods, those means you're getting omega-3s, which are fats, and you don't want to consume a whole lot more fat calories. So this allows you to consume the least amount of fat as calories, but still get all of the omegas in every form that your body needs.
Okay, what is this food, or is it a supplement? Like, explain
So
it.
yes, right now it's a supplement. It's called ahi flour.
Ahi flour.
That's the trade name of it. This is
Yep.
the actual flour here, and it produces a seed, just like similar to flax.
Okay. Okay, I see. So let me clarify also, make sure I understand this. It's a step down from ALA, but
Yes,
one step down is not a problem of anything that we know about. It's going to have to happen anyway, and it
correct.
doesn't present any new problems that we know of. Is that correct?
No, and it converts to not only EPA and DHA much higher and quicker than other forms like flax or chia. They actually did a head-to-head study published in Human Research and found that SDA, that one step down, actually converted to EPA 4 to 5 times better than flax or chia. And even hemp. Hemp has a little SDA in it, hemp oil.
Right.
Or hemp seeds does have a little bit of SDA, but this has about 8 times as much SDA as hemp does. That's why I liked hemp prior to finding ahi flour.
Right. Right. Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, all this is good. Let me ask a question about that ALA, because this is from what I've seen online. You tell me if this is true or not. This may have been another knock against ALA or preferring the next step down. Is I've heard that maybe as humans age, because I'm 54, I'm not getting any younger, that the ability to convert ALA may slow down with age. Is that a factor?
Okay, and this comes from observational studies. So when they observe people aging, they observe that rate go down. But what are they doing while they're aging? Okay, so a great study is called the Epic Norfolk study. You can look it up.
All right.
They looked at people and they found if you are giving people preformed DHA, the body says, oh, it's already there. I don't have to make my own. If you keep sending that message to the body, don't make your own, don't make your own. Well, let's just shut down this process altogether.
Yeah. Okay, I got you.
Okay, so it's not the age that's doing it. It's then continuously introducing something that the body says, well, you've already put it in a preformed state in there. I don't need to make my own.
Okay, I can vouch for that with most functions of the body that I've observed. The same thing, right? You give it, you do something wrong for a long enough period of time, eventually the body's just going to quit.
It does. You do that with thyroid hormones, the body will stop producing thyroid hormones. You do it with testosterone, the body will stop producing its own testosterone. If you do something and it's preformed, instead of letting the body make its own in the right amounts for your gender, men and women need different amounts. People of different ethnicities need different amounts. People of different ages need different amounts. People with different health conditions need different amounts. Our body will make those fluctuations. So they took vegans and they said, okay, what happens to vegans? The enzymes shot up to convert it. So the rates of DHA conversion were 3 to 4 times higher than those consuming. Well, of course, because it needs to convert it.
Right. Okay, I see. So that some of those facts can be kind of twisted to say, oh my gosh, you've got to get the preform version as you get older because you're going to slow down according to this
It'll just make
study over here.
A bad situation worse.
Right. I got you.
It's like saying, hey, I drink alcohol all the time, but when I stop drinking, I get the shakes. As soon as I start drinking, I feel better.
Right.
Of course.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let me ask another question that's kind of related to this. Let's say, because a lot of people who watch this video here may be kind of health nuts like me. I'm always interested in doing the right thing. Most people aren't a health nut, right? And most people have chronic health issues. So even if somebody's not trying to do the best with their omegas, they're not eating enough plants, for the ALA or the flower oil that you pointed out. and they're not taking the preform, which is actually a good thing because they're not really, this is not high on their priority list. Is
Mhm.
just eating a lot of animal products and less plants going to potentially cause health problems due to
Yes.
this
Yes.
omega thing, and why? So even someone who doesn't care about it, is it causing them health problems?
So about 70% of all of our omegas come through plant-based diets. Uh, and I'm not saying those who eat plants, I'm saying through the plants in our diet, because we all eat grains, we all eat beans, we all eat salads, okay, all of those things provide omegas. So if you take, regardless, if the standard American meat eater, they're still getting about 60 to 70% of their omegas from the plants that they're eating, not the animal protein. But because they're eating animals, when you introduce DHA, you are reducing your body's ability to convert the ALA, which is much more prevalent in their diet,
I see.
to DHA. Now, there's also recently, just a brand new study last month, as a matter of fact, showed that when you consume DHA, you not only lower the enzymes that would allow your body to convert the ALA, but the liver itself stops converting DHA. Now, this is the DHA that your body needs to get to the brain, because that DHA has to go to the liver, turned into LPC DHA, that gets into the brain.
Mhm.
That's the primary source for the brain.
Okay.
So by introducing animal DHA, it gets soaked up into the blood, but then stops the liver from producing any for the brain. They've shown that the saturated animal fat that you're consuming actually goes and blocks the blood-brain barrier, and DHA can't even get into it. So you're compounding the problem in 3 different ways. You're producing DHA, which raises your cholesterol levels, which damages the whole process. Then you're sending a signal to the enzyme, stop converting the more prevalent ALA. Then you're sending a message to the liver saying, don't convert it for the brain. And then you're blocking the brain barrier with the saturated animal fat.
Yeah, that's bad. That's bad news. I mean, I tell my little thing here is I tell people, life is balance. And what you just described is a total imbalance of this system, and of course that leads to awful health outcomes in almost every case. So you can't just do nothing, right? You have to be aware of this, because I'm coming into awareness here. I feel like I have been since I became vegan, in 2014, started the organization, stopped taking any of the omega-3 that I was taking. I guess I did the right thing without even realizing it, for this body system anyway. But I think it's important that the word get out, and that's why I encourage people to share this video, comment with your own experiences, etc., because we need to get this out to the average Joe and Jane out there, an understanding of how this system works within the body, so that you don't really screw it up. Because if you're not intentional, the American way here, the American diet, is going to screw it up, it sounds like.
Yeah. Now, some people will, when they've heard me say all this, they will say, well, what about the positive fish oil studies? Oh, it reduces inflammation or whatever. Well, there's no doubt the EPA that our body produces uses it for that way. But our body can use other things like ALA and SDA to also reduce inflammation. So they took a study and they said, okay, omega-3, if you put EPA from fish oil, basically fish oil, which has preformed omega-3 and EPA in it, into the bloodstream, did it improve cardiovascular health? And it did a little bit. So that's where they get this positive idea that does it. They said, okay, but what if you just introduced ALA? Well, ALA improved it even more than EPA and DHA, but
Right.
they've never looked at ALA before because they just assumed it's the fish oil.
Yeah, and kind of also what I tell folks about most things with the body that I've observed is that whenever you intentionally focus on doing something better or you will do better. And that kind of points out what you said. Okay, yeah, if you're focusing on my omega levels in the body and making sure this is happening, and I might be taking a supplement, or even if it's the wrong supplement, you're focusing on it. You're putting your energy into it. There's almost always some form of a little positive outcome. It doesn't mean it's the right thing to do.
Correct. And is it the best thing to do? Good, better, best.
Right.
Yes. Is it better? Yeah. People say, oh, well, wait a minute. What about all those people eating fish and improving their life? I said, Okay, but how much fish are they eating? Well, maybe one fish meal per day. All right, but what are they eating for the rest of the day? All the other meals. What are they eating? So you're eating fish 5 to 7 times a week, and that's a strong fish eater. It
Yeah.
means you're not eating the animal proteins,
Well,
the other animal proteins, you're eating more of the plant proteins. So that's where the health benefits are coming from. It's not the fish.
yes. Okay. Well, here's a based on what you just said. Here's something I've heard for many many years, especially since I started getting involved in running clubs in the early 2010s, even before I turned vegan. What I heard from people was, you're runners, okay? Most people don't run. They don't, okay? Especially when they're 40, 50 years old, they're not running. So the people that were out there were trying to do something good for themselves. And that what they were saying was, okay, I'm going to run so that I can go eat this steak or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm doing kind of like what you just said about fish. Well, I'm going to eat this fish so I can go eat something else. Like, how does that dynamic play out in this with the omegas in the body?
Totally. And now here's an interesting fact. Most people consider fish the health food, right?
They have, yeah. I was saying in the 90s, that was the health food. It was fish.
So the big controversy on cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, especially oxidized cholesterol, which is cooked cholesterol, right? When you cook red meat, you oxidize it, you heat it until oxygen actually sticks to the cholesterol, and this makes it more susceptible to becoming plaque in the arteries. But that's just the material. What gets that LDL cholesterol into the arteries? Well, we now know that when you eat animal proteins and saturated fats, it creates a compound, a metabolite in our digestive tract called TMA. I won't spell it out for you, but then it goes to the liver and converts to TMAO.
Yeah.
So what you hear is TMAO, then that's what drives LDL cholesterol into the artery walls, and that's what's caused plaquing. So it's not technically the LDL. You can have high LDL cholesterol, but if your TMA or TMAO is low, it won't push it into the arterial walls. That's what causes the plaquing for heart attacks and strokes. Now, fish actually does even one step further. If you eat red meat, it creates TMA, which then has to go to the liver and create TMAO, which then does the damage. Mm-hmm. Fish has preformed TMAO, the most dangerous form of it.
Yeah.
That actually forces the cholesterol into the artery walls. That is what causes heart attacks, strokes, and now we know Alzheimer's as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So people just don't know enough. Like, could you say, like, back in the 90s that we knew most of this information, or is this this is newer information since the 90s, right? But we know better, so we need to do better, right? At this point in time.
Totally. And it's only until just 2024, this year, do we have definitive research that shows that 47 times more ALA is converted out of the tissues. And now we also know why the body chooses not to convert ALA in the bloodstream, so that it won't raise LDL cholesterol, so that it won't increase the risk for AFib, increase the risk for strokes and heart attacks. The body is trying to do the right thing. Yeah. But what we're doing is saying, oh, this DHA is needed by our brain. Yes, it is, but let the body do it in the right place, safely, out of the bloodstream. That's what it's trying to do and will do when you eat plants.
All right, Geoff, let me ask a question then. Is there a potential, or is there a condition in which the body cannot regulate this and you must take the preform? Does that even exist? Because maybe some people are saying, well, my body's all screwed up. I know I messed it up. I lived a hard life, so I'm just going to take what about that?
I will never say there's none, because as soon as you say, hey, only mammals raise their children directly from birth, then you have the duck-billed platypus who lays eggs. It just breaks the whole mode.
Yes, I get you. So we only use the word always and never, but I know how people are. There's always an excuse. There's always some line of thinking which seems not right to me, but people believe it. So what would you say?
I've never heard of an incident where there's zero SDA produced from anybody for genetics. but I'm not saying that that's never happened or is not currently happening. I've just never heard of it.
Right. So there shouldn't be a situation where somebody's going to say, I'm just doing my body a favor. It's probably not working right. That doesn't really, that's not going to be a factor in almost every case. We should go back to the basics, kind of like you're saying. Yeah.
Right. Like there are certain cases where they're what they call congenital genetic defects, something you're born with.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now that may be a whole different scenario. You can get tested for that if you want. That means the genetics are hardwired differently, not just epigenetically. So I want the people to understand the difference between hard genetics, which is something that you're born with, called congenital genetics, or congenital variants. I don't want to call them defects because there's always a reason,
right?
Even if we don't know about it. But they're variations. So like with ApoE4, it's a genetic variation. They're called SNPs, SNPs, polymorphisms. Okay. So they're slight changes in the genetics, and many people will have them, but those that are actually interfering with a regular standard diet, there's probably less than 2% in general. So we're talking 2 to 3%. That means 97 to 98% of the people are not having these problems. Don't use that as an excuse. If you feel concerned. Now, I present this one question to you. We know the effects of DHA, severe DHA deprivation. If you remove all the DHA from an animal, we know what happens to it. Brain fog, tingling of the sensories of the things. We know they're very clear symptoms.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, there has not been a reported case of DHA deficiency anywhere.
Okay. In a human, because you're saying the human body stores so much extra. It's going to have so much in reserve, as you described earlier in this video. Yeah. Okay.
That our body will find. And remember, still 70% of the omegas that we're getting, up to 70%, are coming from the plant foods that we're eating every day anyway.
Okay. Now, I have a I think we're getting close to running out of time, but I have an important question that doesn't apply to most of the viewers, so I want to leave it towards the end. I do know some people that are fruitarian.
Yes.
Are they going to be able to get enough omegas by eating nothing but fruit? What do you think?
When I was fruitarian, I included seeds and nuts into the case. So I called myself fruitarian, even though when technically it would be just the fruits, but some fruits are kind of hard to eat without, not like strawberries. You can't really eat a strawberry very easily without not eating the seeds. So if you eat a strawberry, you're eating some of the seeds, and the seeds will have some omega nutrition in it. Now, if you also include greens, which if you look at most of the frugivore primates, like chimpanzees, they eat fruit and greens. Greens are generally pretty high in omegas. Darker the greens give a good source of omega-3s. So you can get those from them too as well. Generally, primates that are frugivores, which dominantly eat fruit, also get some seeds and nuts and things like that into their diet. So in their whole food state, obviously, not in isolated oils.
Right. Okay, because some of the fruitarians I know, just for clarification, do not eat nuts and seeds and do not eat greens. So this is why I'm specifically asking, because I know that there haven't been many people over time that have had a diet like that. So it's more of an experiment almost. And even the folks that I know are doing it, they say like that we don't have a lot of history to go on. But this topic here that we're discussing, it makes me concerned for that, so it's just something I have in the back of my mind, that
I would be too. But remember, with 50,000 milligrams of stored DHA, if they've only been fruitarian for 10 years or so, they still could be running on their reserves.
For 10 years.
Yeah. So just like B12, you can have B12 storage for many, many years, over a decade, and still have sufficient B12 before your body starts getting into symptomatic states. Now, I really strongly suggest everyone take a B12 supplement. Fortunately, I will be producing later this year the only true plant to actually have bioactive B12 in it, which is called Mankai.
Ah,
And you can eat mankai in its whole food state and get
nice.
100% of your B12. So you'll never have to take a
Y-
B12 supplement again.
You're going, what you say, what it means, people will be able to buy this, like going to a produce section from you?
Not produce because it's a water plant, so it doesn't survive more than like 24 hours out of the water.
Yeah.
But as a powder, so it'll be
All right.
still whole food, just dehydrated.
I see. Okay, very good. Yeah, because I will say that for me, my wife and I, we take a B12 supplement, and we do when we have a salad, because we're not purely fruitarian, at least not at this point in time, not even close right now. We're mostly raw, but we do add the chia seeds and flax seeds on the salad. That's kind of our regimen anyway. It has been before this video anyway. Now I'm reconsidering everything, after talking to you. Although I feel like for the most part I'm on the right track, but it's always a journey. It's always learning, and nobody, in my mind, nobody ever stays the same. You're either doing better or you're getting worse. So as this new knowledge uh, is bestowed on us, we want to make sure we take the good lessons from it. So
Yeah, and for those people consuming flax and chia, just be sure to grind them before consuming them.
okay, yes, yes,
Yeah, because chia and flax will both pass through our digestive tract undigested.
that's bad. Yeah,
So
that's right.
if you swallow them whole, especially chia, they've shown published study, human study, those consuming chia raise their omega-3 by 0%
Wow.
in their whole state. So you either have to chew them very carefully, and it's hard to chew chia
Yeah.
sometimes,
Oh yeah. Of course.
and even harder to chew flax sometimes. But just make sure it's ground. Once you do
Yes.
the grinding, then it releases the omegas.
Yeah, I think I don't buy it. My wife buys it. I know she buys the ground flaxseed in that state. I'm not sure about the chia, but I'm definitely
And the
keep.
best way, because as soon as you grind the seeds, the it exposes the oil to oxygen and can start oxidizing. So the best way is to grind it right before you consume it.
Immediately. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a tool? Maybe someone invented because we
Coffee
try.
grinder. You
What's
can
that?
buy a coffee grinder for like $10.
Oh, okay. There you go. There.
And
Okay,
just,
that's perfect because we travel all the time. So I
yeah,
need
just drop it in there,
we're
a
making our
couple
own
turns, and
salads
you're
on the
good to
go. Yeah,
go.
there you go. Okay. All right. Well, I think that we've covered almost everything. We've given any of the viewers, all the viewers, a lot to think about. Like I said, please share this. Share this with anybody that can benefit, which truly I think is everybody at this point in time. Because as I mentioned, we in this movement, we seem to know a lot of things, but this is something that's newer and is something that really is important knowledge that I think everyone can benefit or know someone that can benefit from the information. So, and Geoff, please let us know a little bit more in closing here about your company and about how folks can contact you.
Yeah, I think so. You can, if you're interested in purchasing ahi flour, which is one of my favorite supplements. It did win the Nexty Award, which is the top supplement award in the United States for best supplement of the year. You can go to cleanmachineonline.com. You can check me out at Geoff Palmer. It's Geoff Palmer on Facebook, or you can check out our Facebook pages at Clean Machine Fit. Every Thursday at 4 p.m., I do a Clean Machine Live episode talking about all the latest research. I will be talking this week about, oh, well, actually, I don't know when you're going to be airing this. So
It'll be soon. It'll be very soon.
It'll be soon. I'll be soon. It may be already.
Yeah.
Airing an episode on camelina oil, which is a genetically modified plant that is modified so that it produces EPA DHA. And I'm like, oh no, here we go again.
Oh my gosh.
They're
Yeah.
trying to copy algae and fish oil. And look, yes, it may help people stop consuming fish, which would be a good thing.
Yeah.
But they're consuming the same form as fish, which is
Right.
not a good thing.
Right. Oh my gosh.
So, and again, look for my book. It'll probably be out in Q4 or Q1 of 2025. So Q4 of this year, 2024, Q1, first quarter of 2025. It'll be on omegas. It'll blow your mind. Everything we thought we knew about omegas was basically wrong and backwards. And now we understand what the human body really wants and what happens when you put animal products in it. Besides the heme iron in animal products, which is only found in animal products and not in plants, causing cancer. The number one now colon cancer amongst in humans in America. Number one cancer killer of humans under the age of 50 right now is colon cancer, and it's caused by heme iron that only is found in animal flesh, and it comes in all animal flesh, including fish. So that, and now the omegas shows us clearly the human physiology is designed to convert ALA into all the forms it needs in the right places at the right times. The book will have over 100 published human studies in it showing, laying out step by step why this is important and why your health depends on putting the right materials in it.
All right. Well, thank you again for all of this information and all the great work that is really necessary. So I'm glad that you've recognized it and you're doing it, because people are just going to benefit from this. So again, I thank you so much and look forward to us maybe having another conversation in the near future.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. Have a great day.